In this video, I'll be going over how we use Photoshop to create our film poster. The first step was to go down to adjustment layers and then to click curves. It brings up the color gradient graph, and from here it's kind of personal preference for what you want to do to create certain effects. But with our poster, since it's neo-noir, we wanted it to be quite a dark background and foreground, but also we didn't want to make it so that it was hard for the audiences to see the main character, as he's the main focus point of our poster. So it's just sort of adjusting until you're comfortable and happy with the results. Next step was to go back down to adjustment layer and select selective colors. And once you do that, under custom preset, you select whatever color you want. And again, similarly to the color gradient graph, it's just messing around until you have an effect and a look that you're happy with. And in this case, to create the effect we wanted, we first went to cyan, increased the cyan to 100% and the magenta to 88%. After that, we went back into blues and changed the magenta settings to -28. After that, the next step was to go once again back down to the adjustment layer option and again click curves, but this time go up to the graph option and go masks, and to invert the color so that you've got the black, so that when you highlight, it makes the white comes up on the black and makes it easier to see what regions you've highlighted. So next is just to highlight the area you want to adjust the color of. In this case, we wanted to change the colors of the hand first, so obviously we needed to be very careful with our highlighting, and it's quite a small area in the grand scheme of the picture to highlight, so we choose a smaller brush size. And then I'm going to speed up the footage, but pretty much just highlighted around the hand and then colored in the missing gaps. Once you're comfortable with the base of your highlighting, if you come back up to the graph option and you make a small change, it will give you a better idea of what areas have not yet been highlighted. And as you can see, there are a few small patches that we'd missed out first time, so I just quickly colored those in. Once that was done, we were ready to make changes to the curves to better suit our photo and change the color of the hands. Given it's our poster is advertising a film of the neo-noir genre, as I mentioned earlier, we wanted to have a darker kind of ambient, and so we decided that we should darken the hands. We do that by pulling the graph downwards, and if I go here to the right, you can notice the difference straight away. And I feel like this is while time consuming, it was very, very effective and a good use of time. Next step is once again to go down to adjustment layer and again to curves, and again to layer mask and invert one again. And but this time we're concentrating on the face, and we'll fast forward the footage again, but it was just another case of going around and being very cautious with the highlighting. And once we had the face highlighted, similarly to the hands, we made a slight change and we could see the gaps in our highlighting. We raised the curve of the graph because we felt as though, while it is important to have a dark ambient in neo-noir as it's an archetypal convention, it was at a point where it wasn't easy for the audience to see the kind of distinguishing features of our character's face, and so we raised the brightness of it to make him stand out and just for it to be clearer. My next step was to then highlight the clothes our character is wearing. Um, Similarly to the way we did the hands and the face, we go to adjustment layer, curves, and then layer mask invert. The same way we did with the hands and the face, but obviously there's a lot more highlighting to be done in this case. So I just went round, gave a rough highlight of the edges, and then filled the clothes in the best I could. Went up to the graph, made a small change, and I could see where I'd missed spaces. And then filled in the larger patches and the smaller patches with a smaller brush near the hands. Once that was done, it was only a small change, a very very small adjustment with the curve, but we decided that it would just make it pop a bit more and make the characters stand out. And although it was very time consuming, it took almost an hour just highlighting the hands, the face, and the suit. We felt that it was a justifiable use of our time, as even though it's a small adjustment, we felt as though it was enough to make a difference. Now we had a base image that we were comfortable with, as it now looked more like a film poster, and more specifically a film poster advertising a neo-noir text. And so the next step was to save the photo and export it and open it in a new Photoshop window. We decided that while the picture was a good start, it could be improved and sharpened. And so to do this, I selected the background layer, dragged it down to the new layer option, and selected the new copy of the background, went up to filter, high pass, and then you can have the high pass any setting you want, but for us we wanted to sharpen the image, and the best way to do that is to set it out so that you can just about see the content of the image. So in this case we had it at 2%, and once that was done, you set the opacity of the background copy to linear light, and straight away you can see the image is sharper, as well as having a sort of airbrushed texture to it, which would help us in a few moments with the oil painting filter we're about to add. I then went up to layer and merged all visible layers while holding the Alt key so that the new version was at the top of the stock pile. I then selected this new layer and went back up to filters and selected the oil painting setting. We didn't want the oil effect, the hand painted effect to be too extreme. We just wanted it to be noticeable. For that reason, we put the stylization at 4, the cleanliness at 2.3, and the scale at 0.8. Once I applied the filter to the new layer, I selected the layer and dragged it down to new layer so that it made a copy. I then selected this new copy and changed the opacity to soft light. And as you can see here, once I hide it, you can notice the difference. It just increases the contrast and brings a lot more color to the image. I then selected this new layer and went to channels and selected all of the channels, went up to edit, copy, and went back into the layers option and pasted it. And then from there I changed the opacity from normal down to vivid light, and that once again just increases the contrast and makes the image really pop, and I feel like it does that for the better. I then once again saved the image and exported it and placed it into a new Photoshop window. As you can see, I've already made a number of changes, but they were very simple to do. It was just a case of, for the main title and the subtitle, just selecting the Laser 24 font for the main title and making it neon pink, and then at the foot of the poster, there's a credit block I downloaded on the internet from a link I was sent by my media teacher, and just positioned it on the license plate of the car, as we felt it was quite a cool effect having the license plate being filled with important information and it also being at the bottom of the image, which is an archetypal convention of the film poster. And then underneath that we have coming soon typed on there, as another archetypal convention is having the release date of the text. Most noticeable difference between the last image and this new poster is the smoke effect that you can see behind blackout, but this wasn't that hard to do. What I went away and did was I downloaded a new brush set and installed it, and as you can see here, if I go to brush, you can see all the variations of the neon smoke brush tool. And then from there, it was just a case of playing around with it until I found number and type of smoke effects that I like. We were quite happy with the poster at this point. However, once we submitted it as a draft and we waited for audience feedback, a lot of people said that they weren't very happy with the license plate with regard to the surrounding. There's a sort of plastic number plate that goes around it to hold the plate in, and so they suggested that be filled white to give the appearance of one large license plate, and so we did that. But as with the highlighting of the suit, the hand and the face, it was a time consuming process, as it was just a case of being delicate around the edges and free-handing it until the edges were coloured white, and then we could use the paint bucket tool as well as larger brushes to fill in the white. The final change as a group we decided to make was the credit block I downloaded on the internet. In the bottom left it has the PG rating. However, given the fact that our film is a neo-noir, not very many neo-noir films are a PG. They're much higher rated, normally like a 15 or an 18. And so for that reason, as a group, we decided to get rid of it. And again, it was very simple. All I had to do was rasterize the credit block layer and then paint over it, and that was it. And yeah, this has been a video explaining how I use the Photoshop software to create an effective and professional film poster for our original media text, Blackout.